All right, we're at the end of the talk. So at the very beginning, I talked about practice, talent, motivation, and access as all being an important part of the skill acquisition process. How anyone gets to be an expert, they have to have something from each of these. And our data supports that based on the 3 studies we just reviewed. So practice and talent are both predictors of real-world performance, which is much noisier than anything we would see in a lab. When it comes to motivation, we see that emotion regulation predicts success across all levels of competitive skill for within a person. Identity, which you could convince me it's access or motivation here. Identity impacts how much people are willing to engage, what kind of goals they have, and ultimately how they perform in both real-life situations and in novices that have been trained in the lab. And importantly, life stressors predict growth in top players. So access to practice time, access to mental stability, those sorts of things all matter towards your eventual, your career as a top player. And of course, there are some real world implications for this. There are many ways that esports training initiatives could improve. Giving specific feedback about specific skills rather than general feedback, because people are getting that general feedback from the fact whether they win or lose. Trainers, coaches need to be looking at, okay, what is a specific thing that a player can do to get better? Also, the number of years a person has played way outweighs the number of hours per week they practice. Thus, encouraging sustained training and motivation over time is going to lead to stronger, better skill and skill acquisition. No cramming for the exam here. This is my pet issue, but addressing and training emotion regulation and mindset. There are many coaches who think, oh, guys don't need to deal with that stuff. Or like they only deal with it if the guy is clearly having an issue. But really everybody should be talking about and thinking about how their life stressors and their emotion regulation skills are impacting their ability to do their best. And finally, being able to provide financial and therapeutic support to reduce or counteract those life stressors could show major improvements in players that are underprivileged or otherwise facing a lot of life stress that some of their peers might not. When it comes to recruiting women and creating women pros, we need to be looking at recruiting them directly, outreach programs, because women don't seem to identify as gamers and smashers quite as easily as men. And within their training, they should be exposed to support groups that include other women. So they shouldn't just be the only girl on the team, because that's all they're going to be thinking about for a lot of their training sessions, trust me. And finally, I hope this talk has given you some insight into how we can use real-world skill acquisition to answer psychological questions. This was all on a laptop with existing, ePrime and cogstate software. These were all pre-measured variables, all the tests, have been, their psychometrics are good, and because of that, we could still draw conclusions about the real world. So it's a nice place to be, somewhere between theory and application. As for future directions, I'm still interested in this emotion regulation question, and I'm still interested in this identity, specifically the gender question. So what I'm going to be looking at next is what factors predict interest and persistence for women in gaming. Is it that they are more competitive or more traditionally masculine? Or perhaps they're better at regulating themselves, whether emotionally or their practice habits. Perhaps they were exposed to gaming from a brother or male friends. And what are their experiences within the community can impact whether or not they actually decide to continue with skill acquisition. So I'm basically doing large-scale surveys of both gamers and non-gamers of each gender and trying to see some differences there so we can try to identify or encourage skills and situations that will allow the next woman to be in the top 100. I always forget to say this, but there's only been one woman in the top 100 in the entire history of this game, and she is trans, and she was not out when she was first ranked. So she came out after she was ranked, which means there's never been a cis woman ranked in the top 100, and to me, I can't wait for the day we see that. Okay, so my talk is finished. I wanted to give a shout out to the people that have helped me design these studies and served on my master's and dissertation committee. Mark Beeman is my primary advisor. Paul Rieger is my secondary advisor. And I've also had help from Alice Eagley, Wendy Gardner, Mike, and Emma Adams in CESP. The Creative Brain Lab, so Mark's lab and the Reaper lab, have both been super helpful giving me feedback for this talk. I really appreciate that. And this project has been funded by several different sources. I wanted to thank the Cognitive Science Department, the Psych Department itself, Kellogg's Dispute Resolution Research Center, and the Graduate Research Grant. Thank you.